Yaraskanı kıynaydı yetem tuzunun jaddena.
STK'ların rolü sizlerle birlikte olacak. Moderatörümüzü de hemen sıra başına almak istiyoruz. Mahmut Bey, buyurunuz lütfen. Hemen böyle alalım sizi de. Evet, konuklarımız için şöyle bir merhaba alkışı sizlerden istirham edelim. Çünkü konu gerçekten global olarak hepimizi ilgilendiren bir konu. Yoksulluğun azaltılmasında STK'ların rolü şu andan itibaren sizlerle birlikte olacak. İyi seyirler, görüşmek üzere.
Merhabalar arkadaşlar. Bugün yoksulluğun azaltılmasında STK'ların rolünü konuşacağız. 4 farklı konuğumuz mevcut. Kendileri uluslararası tecrübelerinden bahsedecekler. Ve yine teorik olarak birçok tartışmaya gireceğiz. Konukların konuşma dili İngilizce olacak. Bundan dolayı eğer şayet tercüme için kulaklık almadıysanız kulaklık almanızı rica ediyoruz. İngiltere'den Osman Bokbel beyefendi mevcut, Human Appeal International'dan. Yine Somali'den Omar Jama Adam beyefendi mevcut. Endonezya'dan Suriyama Sastra ve İmdad Foundation'dan Güney Afrika'dan Ahmet Çohan. İlk önce Osman Makbil beyefendiden başlayacağız. We can start.
With you. Thank you so much.
Evet, videoları lütfen hazırlayabilir miyiz PowerPoint sonu?
Can we please have the PowerPoints?
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm very pleased to be here with you today to give you some insight about the challenges that we as part of the civil society face in our work. But before I start speaking about these challenges, I would like to give you a few minutes just overview about the work of Human Appeal and just some good practice for us to learn together. Then after that, I will speak about the challenges of the civil society around the globe. A Human Appeal is a UK-based charity established in 1991, working in around 24 countries around the globe. We work in our mission in our work as a global humanitarian and development organization. We save lives, alleviate poverty, transform and empower local communities, whilst championing humanity, impartiality, plurality, and independence. We work in as I said earlier, in 24 countries around the globe. We work in the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and some part of Europe. We focus in our work in 4 areas. The humanitarian area, as you see, food, non-food items, shelter, protection, education, healthcare, wash, and in development, food security, sustainable livelihood, etc. We have the child welfare and orphans, seasonal projects, and we do some projects locally in the UK. Our largest operation currently is in Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Palestine, and Somalia. You can read here that we have been doing a lot of work in Iraq. Especially, we have a strategic partnership with UN agencies. And you have seen here in the slide that we are doing many projects, especially with UNHCR, WFP, OCHA, and other UN agencies to help the people of Iraq, especially, as you know, after the crisis of Mosul. Good practice in Iraq. This is something I want to share with you because always we speak about accountability. We always speak about feedback from the beneficiaries. But no one really does something to practice this kind of work. So in Iraq, for example, we started something, accountability to affected populations. We want to hear from those beneficiaries. How do they see our work? Do they really benefit from the work? Is it the right work for them? So therefore, we put this mechanism, beneficiary feedback mechanism. The idea of this, to hear from the beneficiaries, their opinion, to hear their feedback, how can we develop our work in that part of the world, in the camps here and there inside Iraq. The other big operation we have is in Syria, and same, you can see that our work with WFP, with UNICEF, with other UN agencies, in addition to our other donors who support our work in the UK, in Europe, and the Arab countries. These are some of our partners who work with us: UNICEF, UNHCR, OCHA, WFP, IDB, OFID, etc., etc. And we are member of some humanitarian bodies in the UK and other places in Europe. Now, this is the main topic of today, which I want to share with you some of my experience when it comes to the challenges of the civil society in general and the charity work in particular. And as some of you has that experience working with different charities, different civil society organizations, you can, I think, share with me some of what I will say later. We have two kinds of challenges. We have internal challenges and we have external challenges. Internal challenges, these challenges are inside our organization, inside our civil society organizations, and we have external challenges. These challenges which come from outside, but definitely affect our work. So these are some of the challenges, and I will quickly, because of time, just mention some of them. The war on terrorism and counter-terrorism. After September the 11th, as you know, a lot of things changed, especially for those who work in the humanitarian sector, those who work in different types of civil society organizations. Now, these legislations affected many things in our work, from dealing with banks to receiving donation to, in many occasions, shut down our offices because of these new legislations. These new legislation didn't think about the beneficiaries, didn't think about the humanitarian sector. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have any of that, but at least we need to balance and think about the beneficiaries. The second point is radicalization and extremism. So in many occasions, we can't do work here and there because of this type of a new phenomena that we have been hearing about for the last 15 years or 20 years. The climate of Islamophobia. Islamophobia is something, is a new phenomenon that really affected our work everywhere. Because they link, especially this related to the Muslim civil society organizations, they link anything, any bad image, let us say, of Muslims here and there with the good work we have been doing. And that as well was one of the factors affected the work of many, many charities around the globe. De-risking and financial access impacting NGOs' work. This is related to the first and the second point. Because banks now, they check you before they deal with you. They want to see what you do. And in most of the occasion, you are accused for allegations which don't have any kind of base. But unfortunately, this is how life works these days. Lack of engagement with the humanitarian system. So the humanitarian system, the UN, which is the humanitarian, we are part of the humanitarian system. So UN agencies, we have INGOs, we have many, many, many big bodies around the globe. We are not part of. So we need to think carefully about this, because in the end of the day, we are part of the humanitarian, international humanitarian system. Media reports. We have seen a lot of media reports targeting specifically Muslim charities and Muslims who are part of the civil society, activists in many countries. And these journalists or these media reports can just throw something in the air about XYZ. After that, how can you solve it? And I think those who work in this area, they really understand what I mean by these reports. One of the problems of the media reports that the governments in many places, they are affected by these reports. So therefore, in many occasions, many Muslim charities were asked to close their operation by the local government because of what? Because of some media reports. The other point about politics and military. We see in many occasions that some people used the humanitarian work according to their agenda, either military groups or political groups. So this is one of the challenges. We as humanitarians, we must be aware about these things, and we must keep ourselves only doing the great humanitarian work that we have been doing for years. Lack of understanding of the effective of strategic partnership. In this climate, you need to have partnership with some local governments, partnership with UN agencies, partnership with INGOs, etc., etc. So many of the civil society organizations, they lack that kind of understanding. So these are just a few points about the external challenges. Now I move quickly to the internal challenges. In our organizations, in the civil society organizations, we lack of few things. And these things became a very challenging for all of us, especially during this time, this environment, which is full of external challenges. Poor governors, weak system and process. We must have a strong governors. So when you have a weak governors, no system, no procedure, no policies, then this will affect your transparency, accountability. How do you want people respect you and trust you? In the second session afternoon, There was a lot of discussion here about why the general public don't trust the civil society organizations. And the discussion was about Turkey this morning. That 1 of 10 just give for charities. The other 9 people, they give what? Either they spend themselves or their own way, because of some of these things. Let's focus on disaster risk reduction, resilience, and sustainable development initiatives. Because we have been busy with what the crisis, Syria crisis, 6-7 years now, Iraqi crisis, Yemeni crisis, Somalia crisis. So every day, where are you going? Running. Even those who should be work in their countries to support the people there, they went now to help the people of Burma in Bangladesh. Or you see them now helping the people of Somalia. So the continuous crisis usually push us away from doing these things. Lack of trust from the general public, as I mentioned earlier. Lack of leadership, especially women and young people. And the session as well this afternoon, they mentioned this, that you have the young people are not interested to be part of the civil society, because either we don't give them room or we don't promote them and empower them to be part of the leadership. So women and young people. Donors-driven approach. We need to think always about the beneficiary approach. What the beneficiary needs, not what the donor needs. So it's not wish list of things. So we have to be careful that we are driven, our work is driven by beneficiaries, not by the donors. Let's focus on research and advocacy. That's something very important. I was happy to hear this afternoon about some centers here in the UK, in Turkey. They have done a lot of research related to the charity work in Turkey. But this is anyway lacking in many other countries, which we need to push and put forward. People these days respect you if you come with figures, research. You come with clear idea what you want and what is really affected our work in different places. We don't have influence on the big bodies, the decision makers. That's something we need to think about. Shortage of qualified technical experts and staff turnover in the NGO sector. How we overcome these challenges? Effective strategic partnership with governments, UN agencies, networks, and faith groups. We have to build relationship, collaboration, engagement, partnership, because in this, instead of we face the challenges ourselves, we should face them, overcome them with other partners around the globe. Strong engagement with financial institutions to tackle de-risking and financial issues. It's not only you open the bank account and you don't know what's happening. So you need to build relationship with the bank, introduce them to your work. Then you can build the trust between you and the bank. Robust system and process inside the organization. You should have excellent governance, process, procedure, system, etc. Strong coordination between even the civil society organization locally. It's very strange sometimes. I am in this country and I don't know who in that country doing my work or similar that work. So coordination. Adhere to core humanitarian principles of humanity, transparency, impartiality, independence, neutrality. We are here to support the humans, regardless of their background, of their religion, or ethnicities. So we need to think always about these things. Building trust with the general public, dialogue among the civil society organizations in the one country and others, in a few things, innovation, humanitarian aid and development. Strengthening capacity of local NGOs. So we sometimes go to Syria, to Iraq, we do the work and we come back. We should work with the locals, we should support the work of locals, because these are the people who will continue doing the work in that country after we leave. Ensure coherence in responding to emergencies and the crisis through effective partnership, joint agreement in tackling the key issues affecting our humanitarian and development work. So we need to work with others. We need to build that kind of partnership, collaboration, coordination in order to be effective, more effective in our work. Emphasize the importance of faith. These days, you can see that faith-based organizations are playing very important role in the emergency or even development areas because they understand a lot of things others cannot understand it. Therefore, we need to be brave enough to be sure about our identity and use all kinds of principles, values, and ethics when we implement our work. So faith is very important when it comes to our work. We might sometimes want to hide it, but be sure everyone knows what is your agenda and what you do. So you have to be transparent and be proud of your faith, and that will encourage many people, especially locals, in different disasters to help and work with you. These only, as I said, because of time, and now this is late session, end of the day, just I want to give you quick overview about this topic and about the work of a human appeal. Thank you very much for all of you, and hope if you have any question, we'll answer it later.
Osman Makbul Beyefendi'ye sunumları için çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
Osman Makbul,
Çok
sir,
önemli
thank you very much.
noktalara
You have
değindiler
touched
kendileri.
upon great
Özellikle
aspects,
sivil toplum kuruluşların
especially
yaşadığı iç ve dış
the internal and
sorunlar,
external challenges of
yine özellikle
NGOs,
radikalleşme, vahşicılık
especially
ve
radicalism and
terörle ilgili
extremism,
kanunlar, sivil
terror,
toplum kuruluşları
combat
hayli
with terror,
kuruluşların
affecting the work we do, as well
asılsız
as
iftiralar ile
the biased
kuruluşların fişlenmesi.
claims about NGOs.
Şimdi ikinci konumuza
And,
geçeceğiz.
Which is
Somali'den
affecting
Omar
their
Jama
reputation.
Beyefendinin
Now, Omar
Somali'de
Jama
kuraklık
from
ve
Somali
kıtlık kaynakları
will be talking about the
sunumu
sources
olacak.
of drought and famine. Sir, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'm happy to be here for just presenting this presentation in this evening. My name is Omar Jama. I'm from an organization called Zamzam Foundation. It's a humanitarian organization and development working in Somalia. Over the last 25 years, we have been working in Somalia, and we are one of the largest development and humanitarian organization in Somalia. And we do different activities in Somalia, and we help the poor people. What I'm gonna be talking about this in this during my presentation is what you have been just hearing a lot of time. I came from a country called Somalia, located in Horn of Africa. We have been, this country have got independence in 1960. Unfortunately, this country is a very poor country with a population of 12.3 million. Whenever you hear the name of Somalia, unfortunately, you just see you link or just your famine, conflict, war, and virus, something like that. So that's what happened in Somalia. We have been in crisis, in conflicts, in disaster over the last 25 to 27 years. So there is a number of famine happened in Somalia. A lot of people died. What I'm going to talk about this tonight is what's the causes of this famine, this drought, why the people dying for hunger in Somalia. Before I talk about these causes, I will talk about briefly the history of famine in Somalia, or famine in Somalia, the history. You know, in Somalia, since 1991, when the central government of Somalia happened, there was a number of famine and drought happened in Somalia. In 1992, a large famine happened in Somalia that claimed the life of around 300,000 people. You cannot imagine 300,000 people died because of hunger, died because of conflict. That happened in 1992 when an international intervention came to Somalia to save the lives of people of Somalia. Also, from that time, number of droughts happened, but it did not develop to the famine. In 2000, 2006, 2008, all that times, all that period, there was a drought, there was a lack of or shortage of food, until we came to 2011, 2012, that another famine just erupted in Somalia. Unfortunately, that famine also just claimed the life of 260,000 people, mainly children. You cannot just imagine in this world, in this modern world, 2,206 people dying because of lack of food, because of lack of water. Currently, 2017, we are living in crisis as well. You know, half of the population of Somalia now are in need of assistance. They don't have a mechanism, or they don't have enough food, enough water. Currently, 3.5 million of children don't go to schools in Somalia. 5 in need for primary health care. Only 40% of the population have access to clean water. All that's facts that in Somalia. All of that is facts. Unfortunately, it's very, painful that Somalia always in that stage. This famine, just we will go about talking about what the cause of this famine. There's a number of factors that's causing this famine. If you just read about Somalia, Somalia is not a poor country. There is natural resources. There is in Somalia there is an enough land, agricultural land. There is livestock. By the way, we are the #1 countries who have just export the camel into the world. #1, the number of the camel in Somalia. We have a large number of other livestock, and we have other precious stones, precious natural resources in Somalia. All that in Somalia, but the people are dying. Why? One of the major things that we have is what's called poor governance. Because of the lack of strong governments, because lack of the strong institutions that work in Somalia, anything is not well coordinated. Famine can be averted if there is a good mechanism, there is governance, there is good administration took in place, famine can be averted. You know, we have an example in 1975, 73, 75, and a large drought happened in Somalia. At that time, there was a strong government in Somalia. That drought affected 700,000 people, but only 20,000 died. While in 2011 and 1992, half a 250,000 and more than that died. Why? At that time, the government managed to and coordinated to avert this famine, this drought, to tackle, coordinate the aid, and have just put in place an early warning system. So one of the major causes of the drought in Somalia is that because of that, lack of poor coordination, poor governance, and lack of good mechanism to avert the famine. Number two is what's called environmental or climate shocks that happen in Somalia. Somalia is located in Horn Africa. There is a number, for the people depend on the natural resource. There is no industrials, there is no. So the symbol of the people life dependent on their life on the farmers, on livestock, on the simple natural resource. When the rain doesn't come in one season, or there is limited rains in Somalia, the people start having problem. If another 2 seasons fail the rain, and this just turned into a problem of drought, problem of famine. So dependence on natural resources, that is one of the major cause of Somalia. And then because of the climate change in the world, the rainy season is just start Somalia in a very limit, and almost there is no mechanism to cope with the lack of the rain. And the people are not well organized, or are not just cannot be against that natural resources. The number 3 of the famine causes that what we call lack of famine early warning system. You know, in Somalia, there is a lack of available information. There is a failure to put in place an effective system to track what's happening. Is this drought turning to famine? There is lack of information. There is lack of coordination. All that just causes that we've seen when the drought happens, there is no a system that can just look for or just see when it's the famine is coming, or other people coping with this drought, or just it is it's turning to a famine. So only we see while we are in the middle of the famine, while we are in the people dying, and that time nothing can be done. People already done. For example, in 2011, the UN and the government of Somalia declared the famine when half of the people died already. So that is one of the problems that we have in Somalia. The other thing is that what's called it, the people, we have been in problem for a long time. The people just become dependent on aid. There is a number of aid providers who's come in Somalia, UN, international, from Islamic world, and they're providing support and assistance to the people. And the people that killed the initiative inside the people, that killed the people, that caused the people to be independent of the aid, and they don't work, they don't just cope with their own resources, they just starting waiting and aid from the NGOs, from the international community. Whenever a problem happens, when there's food insecurity, they start looking for an aid and support from outside, so that the causes the less production, less work, and you can see inside IDB's camps a people owning a land, a precarious land, and at the same time they are living inside the IDB camps, looking for or waiting for an aid from the international. Also, one of the major things that cause the famine and drought in Somalia is what we call lack of resilience. The people don't have a mechanism to cope when they have shocks, when the rain don't come. There's no system put in place that they can cope with these shocks, with this problem. There is no, another system they can deal, or they can just get assistance. Only they wait for that. So the lack of the resilience to cope with these shocks always just lead to the famine happen. And this is one of the major things that is caused by the international, the international has providers. You can see aid providers come to Somalia and provide assistance, but not development assistance. So every time the cycle famine coming back. The conflict also fuel this problem. Currently, the major areas that affected by the famine and droughts is not accessible, cannot be reached by the aid providers because of the conflict, because of the war, because of the. So every person or every aid provider try to reach that area, cannot reach. So, and the people, the real affected people live in there. So the conflict is the fueling and just making the issue very problem. So how this cycle of famine can be broken? How can we come over this cycling of the famine? How can we end? One of the things that to build the resilience of the community to cope with these climate shocks, these problems. If the aid providers, the government, work on build the resilience of the community who are affected by the drought, this cycle of drought will be ended. What you do is just not giving assistance, just not giving a food, but just to provide a means to produce something. If it's farmer, provide an toolist means of production. If it's livestock header, provide a means to to support himself. So on that way, you can build. And whenever, also you can build the capacity of how, when the shock happen, can deal with. So that time, you never need to be assisting every time that famine happen. Also, the transforming the aid and invest long-term development system along with the emergency. When you are providing an emergency, you also need to provide development initiatives that can help other people. I will take an example, what we currently call Turkish aid model in Somalia. Now, over the last 20 years, billions have been spent in Somalia from the UN agencies, from the international, but the problem continued. Now, I think from the famine 2011, what happened, a lot of, Turkish aid providers from the government, from the aid agencies come to Somalia. They started a new model to assist Somalia that appreciated by the people of Somalia. You know, what that model? That model is what we call combining the aid and development. You know, the Turkish organizations and Turkish official aid providers, when they come to Somalia, they did not just give an emergency only, but also they providing and development issues. They build schools, they build hospitals, they build what we call roads that majorly changes how the people live in Somalia.
Last minute. Last minute.
Okay, thank you. I will finish. Also, they support, high bed infrastructure. Also, they support they give us direct support to the government of Somalia. So that started just providing, helping the people of Somalia to cope with the shocks. Now, currently, the things that have given or provided by Turkish organizations or Turkish governments, now the people is starting to do the same thing. The Turkish organizations or Turkish government built one road in Somalia, in Mogadishu. Currently, and other roads have been built constructed in Mogadishu because the people started have a new life for that. So that's the main issue that we can do. Thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum.
Omar Jama Beyefendi'ye sunumları için
Thank
çok
you very
teşekkür
much,
ediyoruz.
Mr. Omar Jama, for your
Somali'de
presentation,
yaşanılan
especially the
susuzluk ve
famine and
kuraklık
drought
problemlerine değindiler.
problems of
Yine
Somalia
Somali
were
tarihinden biraz bahsetti. Özellikle
discussed during your
kuraklık tarihinde ve
presentations,
yoksulluk tarihinde.
and you also
Benim
talked
not aldığım
about the history of drought and
üç
famine.
önemli nokta
There are
mevcut.
three important
Yine
points.
1992 yılında
In 1992,
300.000 kişinin
more than
aç ve susuz
300,000
kalması
people died
ve
of
2008 yılında
famine.
260.000 kişinin vefat etmesi
And then
kuraklıktan
same
dolayı ve yoksulluktan dolayı.
problems
Yine
in
2017 yılında
2011
özellikle
and in
3,5 milyon çocuğun okula gidemiyor olması ve
17.5 million
ülkenin
school-age children are
temiz
not
suya
enrolled
sahip olmaması
to school.
ve bu bize
And
gerçekten
these
yükümüzün ne
show
kadar
us
ağır
that we have
olduğunu
a burden, heavy burden on
göstermekte.
our shoulders.
Şimdi bir
Now,
sonraki konuşmamıza
if you allow me, I would
geçeceğiz.
like to give the floor to the
Endonezya'dan
next speaker
Suryama
from
Beyefendi
Indonesia.
sunumlarını yapacaktır. Sunumunun da başlığı
Suryama, Mr. Suryama
toplumsal temelli su ve
will make
temizlik
a
programı
speech. He will talk
kırsal ve
about
kentsel
community-based water and
Endonezya'da
sanitation
SDG
program in
uygulamasını
rural and
arttırmak
urban
için
Indonesia.
öğrenilen dersler.
Lessons learned to increase SDGs implementation.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening. I have to push the timers. This is the last session on the first day. So we can understand that why the seat is empty, but because the organizing committee will be publish the proceeding, we expect that our experience, our ideas that share with this forum will be accessed by the wider audience through the publication, inshallah. So let's skip from the introduction. Oh, how? It doesn't work? Okay. This is, it's not so important to, but the one important thing is I'm starting as activist in the grassroots since the beginning. When I'm entering the first year in university, it's been 37 years ago. So, what I would like to share and to discuss with you is about something simple on the grassroots. Brother Omar Jama has told us about water and basic needs that happen in Somalia. So droughts and famine becoming everyday news in a very rich area in Horn of Africa. Somalia is a country that has the strongest power in Africa at that time. It's true. In history, Somalia is gladiator of Africa. So a very strong, but something happened not only by natural causes, but also by man-made causes that I believe. We have worked, PKP have been working in Somalia and several countries in Central Africa since 2010, I think, 2009. We working in the grassroots. We are here. And in Indonesia, in our country, we have another problems that unbelievable. It's about a very simple problems about waters, about how we behave when we defecate, when we entering so-called in modern era toilets. This is our advertisement. Somebody with suits and tie practicing open defecation in riverbanks or in fields, in yards, backyards at home. It's happened. in another part of the world, it's happened. So we heard several years ago there is a toilet summit because the toilet behavior is simple, but it is part of human civilizations. We are different from another creatures in this planet because as a Muslim, we remember what Prophet saying, an-nadhafatu minal iman, aw kama qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sanitation, hygiene behavior is part of our deeds. It's part of our iman. So, let's check our statistic. Diare infect 2 million people annually because their water is polluted by and low hygiene. This happened in Africa and Southeast Asia because of limited access of water and sanitation. So, behavior of the people when defecate is a part of this causes, is a part of this problem. Let's check another statistic. There is some tropical disease that, like filariasis, like frambusia, and so on, that inflicted 500,000 deaths annually, according to a survey. And it's almost of countries endemic. Again, this is related to poor people who live without access of water and sanitation in standard terms. So let's come back to focus on Indonesia. There is about 34–35% Indonesian are not enjoying the safe drinking waters. That's research in 4 years ago and published 2 years ago. So Indonesia is archipelago. Sea, water with several islands, but we have problem in safe drinking water. That's nearly the same percentage have proper sanitation. This is the last year's data. It's about 20% of population. This is our focus. Still practicing open defecation around riverbank, field, forest, yards, etc. So it looked like in London when Industrial Revolution started, the labor who live in slums area, throwing their faces through their window to the public roads. I think it's happened today in some area in India and several areas. But in Indonesia, nearly 20% of the population still doing this. Unbelievable, but we have to deal with this problem. directly. So this is the illustration how if we grab the expression of the people who practicing open defecation in a very simple toilet. This is part of our campaign. Okay, let's check the concept, the policy. There is WHO concept of community-led total sanitation that we adopted in 2013, and we developed 5 factors or 5 pillars how to make the behavior of community totally hygiene. As we can say, oh, it doesn't work. Huh? That's it? Okay. I'm not familiar with this one. Okay. The yellow one, we started with drinking water and food management. The green one, the second is hand washing with soap. A simple thing. Anybody doing hand washing with soap today when entering our toilets downstairs? You? With soap? Yes. Always? Every time? You are enjoying a privilege among people in this planet. Alhamdulillah. But so many people that practice, it's not no need to using soap to hand washing, just water and that. The third one, stop the open defecations. I'll show you just how they do it. This is the real life. The people on the corner, it is in the riverbank. On the right side, it's in the, what we call it, in the in backyards. So in the row below them is we catch their toilets. So only a small hole or small hole with a very simple partitions. Okay, let's come back to what we, so the concept is, if we can put these 5 factors, if we can find it in community, we can expect that they behave hygiene totally. And we develop it in terms of community based, not only imposed from government or from the leader to the people. Oh, it's 15 minutes. May I?
It's 5 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the other one is how to manage waste, solid and liquid. So the 5 factors should be happen in communities in terms of their initiative, not imposed by government or by a leader. But the first thing first is the yellow one. The necessary condition is drinking water and food management. So first thing first, and we have to start from the yellow one. Okay, what we are doing is in terms of NGO practices, we are doing a capacity building. So to remind you, all of you here, the NGO working 4 types: just giving, charity, empower them, capacity building, set up a greater networking like today, and bringing so-called policy advocacy to make more strategic, more wide impact. So we are working in the second type. We try to strengthen and build their capacity to manage their self. So this is the concept. We can discuss later. The important thing is we have to engineer them, triggering that we need a more healthy life. That's the first thing first. And we environment, and we assist them. We work with partnership with them to set up what they want to achieve. In our experience, to implement this concept on the ground, at least we need 2 years. 2 years. Because we not only build a standard toilets, but the toilet is part of healthy living. The toilet is part of their life. The toilet is, in more general term, part of civilization. So we have reached 1/3 of our province last minute. There is 12 province. We since 2011 until 2000, so in 6 years, we reached 2,530 points, and we spend only $1 million, and the beneficiary is about half million people. Oh, no, 532,000 people. So, in terms of economy, is very, very low cost. And, okay, I'll show you
Can you please wrap it up?
This is the lesson learned. More sustainable. So when we left them, the behavior is the people stay in their new healthy living. That's all. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We can discuss later with this.
Endonezya'dan Suryama Bey'e sunumları için teşekkür ediyoruz.
Well, Suryama Sastra, thank you very much. Again, we learned many things from his presentation, in my opinion. He especially focused
dört
on
farklı noktaya
4
değindi.
different points.
Birincisi
The first
doğal
one,
afetlerden ziyade
rather than
insanlardan da
natural
kaynaklı olan
disasters,
krizler
we have
mevcut.
man-made crises.
Bunun temel sebebi de hijyen
And
ve
the main
temizlik.
reason is hygiene
Yine
and
bununla
sanitation.
ilgili kendileri
And
istatistik paylaştı.
He shared statistics
Endonezya bazında.
on the
Yine bunlardan bazıları benim
Indonesian
not aldığım.
statistics. Some of them have been
Endonezya'da
noted. In
toplumun
Indonesia,
%33-34'ünün
30
temiz
to
suya ulaşamaması.
34% of the population have difficulties
aynı
in terms
şekilde
of
toplumun
clean water,
33'ü,
and
%33'ü, %34'ünde
or
temizlik ve hijyen sorunun
34% have
olduğunu
hygiene
ve bundan
and
dolayı çeşitli
sanitation
hastalıkların
problems, resulting
yayıldığını
in a
söyledi
number of
konuşmacımız.
diseases.
Yine
And
bununla ilgili açık alanların
there is also
çok
the
temiz olmadığını
open
ve buna binaen
defecation problem. Hence
4-5
the
aşamalı bir kampanyayı
unclean open
başlattıklarını,
premises.
bu kampanyanın 2
And you
senelik
started
olduğunu
an
ve
initiative
bu
4 or 5
kampanyanın
phases
4-5
for
aşaması
2
mevcut
years.
olduğunu,
And there are 4 and 5 phases, 4 or 5
birincisi
phases of this campaign or
temiz içme
initiative.
suyunun
Clean
sağlanması,
drinking water and food
ikincisi
management.
toplumun
The second one
bilinçlendirilmesi,
is awareness raising in the
üçüncüsü
community.
yine
The third one is,
temizlik açısından
again, in terms
toplumun
of cleanliness and sanitation,
sabun kullanılması
the
ve dördüncüsü
use of
ise
soap and clean water
halk
for washing
arasında
hands.
ve
The fourth
toplum
one is
içinde sıvı atıkların kontrol altına
controlling
alınması.
liquid and
Bunun
solid
1 milyon
waste.
dolarla yapıldığını
And he
söylediler
said
kendileri
that the
ve
overall cost of the project was
2530
1
lokasyonda
million.
bu kampanyayı
And they were
gerçekleştirmişler.
able to do
Şimdi son
this in
konuşmacımıza
2,530 locations.
Güney
Now
Afrika'dan
we move
Ahmet
to the
Çohan
last
Beyefendi'yi
speaker,
dinleyeceğiz.
Ahmet Çohan from Southern Africa. The floor is
You got
yours.
20 minutes.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and good evening to all our participants. Before I begin, if we can have the video that we've left, if that can play, and then
Organic Community Garden. Astride the banks of the Little Bushmans River in the small town of Escort lies the Al-Imdad Foundation's Organic Community Garden, which utilizes environmentally friendly organic practices. Designed with the support of the local municipality, FNB Islamic Finance and international donors, the project aims to promote empowerment and skills development amongst previously disadvantaged and unemployed people. In the beginning, we faced a highly polluted flood zone field, making land clearing and soil rehabilitation very challenging. Water samples were taken and a borehole sunk to provide a water-wise irrigation system. Flood zone practices such as raised gardens, underground piping and flood wall were implemented. Keyhole gardens were laid out using sacred geometry and enriched with organic matter such as straw, natural manures and pioneer planting. Friends and enemy separation and vegetable family rotation were followed. 313 fruit and nut trees and a selection of edible berry bushes were also planted. These features and processes created a rich, healthy environment for the garden's development. The garden and buildings allowed previously unemployed individuals to learn gardening practices, building, bricklaying, welding, tiling and other empowering skills. Red regular earthworms munch away on garden scraps, paper and cardboard, producing nutrient-rich castings and worm juice, which enrich our garden soil. Rich compost, built in layers of brown and green garden matter with added herb offcuts, rests on beds of sticks with air tubes to allow the escape of heat and gases. The use of heirloom seeds sown to produce healthy seedlings ready for planting out in the garden beds. Companion planted seedlings, interspersed with protective herbs and flowers, planted in accordance with lunar and seasonal schedules. Mulching the garden protects the soil, helps conserve water, and inhibits the growth of weeds. Herbs are planted as protective barriers, interplanted amongst vegetables, mixed for insecticide sprays, and have numerous medicinal and culinary uses. Vegetables are sprayed with homemade insecticides and soil activators, including weed teas, compost liquids, and earthworm juice. Indigenous grasses, shrubs, and trees were planted to invite birds and insects to return. Harvesting fruits and vegetables takes place seasonally and in line with lunar schedules when the crops are mature and ready for picking. Fresh vegetables are picked straight from the garden and distributed to needy beneficiaries. Cleaning, processing and packaging of fruit and vegetables is an important process carried out in the on-site packaging department. Humanitarian food hampers and vegetable parcels are critical in the feeding of orphans, widows, pensioners and other needy groups. Combo supply packs, relief food parcels and humanitarian vegetable hampers are loaded onto trucks for delivery to those who need it most. An on-site shop makes fresh fruit, vegetables and other goods available and plays a role between Al Imdad Foundation and the public. Pruning of the young trees and bushes is critical in the early years of growth to help the shaping of dwarf trees and espalier. A clean and tidy garden is an efficient garden. Recycled residue is deposited into the compost heap and weeds are made up into a protective tea. Chickens are one of our best friends in the garden, helping to control unwanted insects, turning up the soil, and all the while providing us with nutrient-rich night soil and a lot of eggs.
My name is Nogubonga Mbogazi. I'm working at the greengrocer as a teller, and I've worked at the community garden for 4 years, and I've also received the full bursary to study as a teacher.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Hi, my name is Nzebo Abu Bakr Zoom. I started working here in Al Imdad since last year, and Al Imdad has helped me in a number of ways. If I may count, they have assisted me with the license and helped me to develop a number of skills and give me a chance to gain an experience in engineering, which I've studied in Ladysmith. To who has ever sponsored Al Imdad, I wish to say thank you. He didn't sponsor Al Imdad alone, but he has helped us all. Jazakallah.
Hi, my name is Sandy Ethiopia. I have worked with Al Imdad for 4 years, and it also helped me to be an organic garden, and now I know how to plant everything organic, and it has been giving me this wonderful garden that you can see here, and I also have a license now, and also give me a bursary. Shout out to Al Imdad.
The Al Imdad Foundation Pilot Project Organic Community Garden, from seed to empowerment.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm not going to be very, very long. Some of you may have heard about South Africa. Some of you may have visited South Africa. The South Africa that we were born in and the South Africa that we live in today has different dynamics. My topic that I would like to discuss is building bridges through charitable work in multicultural societies. When we were in school, there was an anecdote that we were often told. A person riding in his Rolls Royce goes down a street, and typical South Africa, somebody throws a rock at his windscreen. Windscreen not shattered as much as his heart was shattered. But he decides to get off his car, and he goes to the side of the road, and he finds a young South African boy had fallen off his wheelchair. The person was physically challenged. He could not move. there was no one to put him back onto his wheelchair, and that was his way of asking for help. Today, whatever you hear about South Africa, whatever you see about South Africa, whatever you know about South Africa, there is one fact you need to add on, that somebody in South Africa is asking for help. When we speak about South Africa being a multicultural society, it is perhaps one of the few countries in the world in which we have a multicultural society, by and large, that is in need, a society in which we find the very few that are wealthy, a society that was not only marred by colonialism. We had got our independence in 1960, but from 1960 to 1994, South Africa had lived through the apartheid regime. The damage that the apartheid regime had caused to our country, the imbalances that the country had gone through, required some form of intervention. Not intervention from international organizations, but intervention from us South Africans ourselves. And hence, the Al Imdad Foundation was founded in 2003. In its very initial stages, the foundation was grappling with two issues: the condition of the global community that was in dire need, and at the same time, our own community in South Africa. And hence, part of our policy is to work within our country and then, obviously, to reach out to the world. A mammoth task, but something that we have come to terms with, and something that we enjoy doing on a daily basis. Friends, those of you that visited South Africa, you would find what we call an affluent northern suburb with houses, mansions of a phenomenal value. And then when you turn your eye, you would find somebody living. We find somebody living in a small little home that is about 3 meters. Communal toilets and ablution centers had to be put up for these people. What are we doing as an organization? The very first thing, as you have seen, is the Al Imdad Foundation had begun a rapid empowerment program. I've been asked to complete and conclude, so I'll just go through very, very quickly the kind of programs we are having. We know that South Africa was amongst those countries of the world that was hard hit by the AIDS pandemic, and many of our young children had become orphans. So we run orphanage programs, we run educational programs, and together with that, South Africans have to deal with different challenges. There are those that have to deal with a broken down healthcare system. And we would find the very old, 80, 85-year-old mothers and fathers coming from distant areas to hospitals in the city centers. And they would leave at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And by the time they have completed their medical treatment, it will already be 12 noon. The foundation goes out. Volunteers from the nearby homes would go out and give these citizens of ours a slice of bread. Our schools, if you notice, our children would travel 5 to 6 kilometers a day without shoes to come to schools. They haven't eaten, and when they are in their schools, they do not have anything to eat.
Well, can we wrap it up? Buses are waiting outside for us.
And we give them a very, very healthy breakfast. So the foundation is trying in every way to build these bridges, to create a cohesion between those that have in South Africa and those that do not have. And in conclusion, I would like to thank the organizers of this summit for putting something like this together, and may this not be the last of it, but we continue and share our ideas. May God bless one and all. Thank you.
Ahmet Çoğan Beyefendi'ye çok teşekkür ediyoruz konuşmaları için.
Thank you very much for your
Özellikle
speech.
Güney Afrika gibi çok kültürlü bir toplumda ne sorunlar yaşadıklarından bahsetti. Özellikle sağlık sorunlarından ve genel olarak toplumdaki ırkçılıktan, yine toplumu güçlendirme açısından çeşitli çalışmaları mevcutmuş. Bu konulara değindi. Bunlardan daha fazla bahsetmek isterdik ama sanırım gala yemeği için dışarıda otobüsler bekliyor bizi. Sizleri bayağı bir yormuşuz çünkü organizasyon komitesi de artık sanırım mükafatlandırmak için sizleri ve bizleri yemeği götürecek diye umuyoruz.
Sayın moderatör ve sayın panelistlere ben ayrı ayrı çok teşekkür ediyorum. Gala yemeğimizin olmasından dolayı otobüslerde diğer panelistler bizleri bekliyorlar. Affınıza sığınaraktan plaketlerinizi şimdi sizlere takdim etmek istiyoruz. Moderatörümüz Mahmut Aytekin Bey'den rica ediyoruz. İlk olarak İngiltere'den Osman Mokber'e plaketini takdim edeceğiz ve de ufak bir hediyemiz olacak. Mahmut Aytekin Bey'den bir kere daha istirham edelim. Diğer panelistlerimiz de Somali'den Omanjama Adam. Evet. Mahmut Bey'in hemen Osman Bey'in akabinde Ömer Bey'e takdim edeceğiz diğer plaketimizi. Evet. Omanjama Adam Somali'den gelmişti. Zamzam. Osman Bey ise Human Appeal. STK'sından. Ve bir diğer plaketimiz de Mahmut Aytekin, Endonezya'dan Suryama Sastra'ya takdim ediyorlar an itibariyle Human Initiative. Ve Güney Afrika'dan az önce panelini bitirdi. Panelistimiz Ahmet Çoğan Bey'e İmdat Vakfı'ndan gelmişti. Kendisi takdim edilecek. Evet. Ve Mahmut Aytekin Bey bugün aramızda olamayan Doktor Ahmet Emindağ adına burada oldu. İnsamer'den katıldı ve evet, İnsani Yardım Vakfı'nın desteğiyle gerçekleşti. Efendim ben de size takdim ediyorum. Lütfen kabul buyurunuz. Çok teşekkür ederim değerli katkılarınızdan dolayı. Thank you very much for your contributions. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. Evet. Türkiye Cumhurbaşkanlığı himayelerinde Uluslararası Şehir ve Sivil Toplum Kuruluşları Zirvesi yarın da devam edecek. Şimdi gala yemeği içerisinde sizleri araçların başına davet ediyoruz katılımlarınızdan dolayı. Evet, çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Esenler Belediyesi'ne teşekkür ediyoruz. Yıldız Teknik Üniversitesi'ne teşekkür ediyoruz. Evet, yarın görüşmek üzere. Hepinize iyi akşamlar. Hayırlı bir gün olur inşallah. Yarın tekrar birlikte olacağız.